Stone walls, cold, 9 meters wide, Babylon 540 BC. You are 91 meters above the largest city on earth. Behind you, the passage is sealed. Priests bolted it from the outside the moment your feet crossed the threshold. You didn't hear them leave, you heard the bolt. There is a golden couch you are forbidden to leave. A golden table with food you cannot touch until it has been blessed. And one oil lamp, the only flame burning at the summit of Etemenanki, visible to 200,000 people on the streets below. They believe a god lives up here. The lamp burns for Marduk, they didn't ask. That's the first thing to understand. The priests of the Esagila temple complex, the Kalu and Arshipu, the exorcist ritualists who controlled every sacred function in Babylon, identified a woman, separated her from her household, and brought her to the Ziggurat precinct. There was no ceremony of consent. There was no record of refusal. There was selection, and then there was the climb. Herodotus records in his histories, Book I, section 182, that she was required to be a native woman, not a foreigner, not a slave, but a freeborn Babylonian. This detail matters. The priests were not rounding up the powerless. They were taking someone whose disappearance would require an explanation. And the explanation they gave, to her family, to the city, to history, was that she had been chosen by a god. This was the highest spiritual calling in all of Mesopotamian religion, that she was honored beyond all women. If Babylon's buried rituals are the kind of history you need more of, subscribe, there's worse underneath. The operational reality was this: she was forbidden from lying with any mortal man. She could not descend the Ziggurat. She was fed through priestly intermediaries who climbed the external staircase, over 300 steps, to deliver her meals through an intermediary passage. Her family did not visit. Her name was not inscribed on any surviving votive tablet, cylinder seal, temple inventory. Not once. Here is the detail that should stop you cold. Every significant religious figure in Neo-Babylonian civilization appears in the cuneiform record by name. The N2 priestesses of earlier periods, named. The Naditu women of Sippar, who held property and conducted legal transactions, named. The Shangu chief priests who administered the Esagila complex, named in prebend contracts in administrative tablets in royal inscriptions. Babylon was a civilization that recorded the name of the brickmaker on individual bricks. Individual bricks that survive today, stamped Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. A civilization so administratively meticulous that surviving tablets from the 6th century BC document barley rations down to the single litre. And the woman who supposedly shared a bed with the supreme deity of the entire empire. The woman whose presence at the summit of the tallest structure in Mesopotamia was the living proof that Marduk inhabited his temple, was never given the dignity of a single written syllable. That omission took effort. Silence in a civilization this obsessive about records is not an accident. It is a decision. If Babylon recorded every barley shipment, every brick stamp, every chief priest's name, why was hers the one thing they refused to write? Pull back, 40 meters, 91 meters. All the way out, a cuneiform tablet now housed in the Louvre, catalogued as Artifact 06555, known as the Esagila tablet, gives us the exact dimensions of Etemenanki. 7 stages, each one smaller than the last, rising from a base of approximately 91 by 91 meters. The summit platform, the Shahuru, was barely large enough to contain a single room. The external staircase, 3 flights converging on the south face, was the only access point. 300 steps. No other way up, no other way down. The tablet's measurements are precise enough that modern archaeologists can reconstruct the structure to within a few meters. The woman Herodotus describes was not confined in some vague sacred space. She was in a specific room, on a specific floor plan, at a specific altitude above a specific city. The horror is not mythological, it has dimensions. And here is the pattern interrupt. Herodotus was not horrified. Writing around 440 BC, roughly a century after the practice ended, he reported it with the detached interest of an ethnographer comparing cultural curiosities. He called the woman chosen by the god. He relayed the Chaldean priest's claim that Marduk himself descended to the chamber each night. He compared the arrangement to similar practices in Egyptian Thebes and the Lycian oracle at Patara. A god choosing a mortal companion, an ancient tradition. He did not ask whether she wanted to be chosen. He did not ask how long she stayed. He did not ask what happened to her when her tenure ended. He accepted the priestly explanation entirely, recorded it faithfully, and moved on. For 20,500 years, every historian who cited him did the same. What Herodotus did not ask, and what the cuneiform record was built to obscure, was the mechanism of replacement. The lamp at the summit of Etemenanki never went out, but the women did. The camera drops from the investigator's distance and slams back into the summit chamber, where the oil lamp has begun to gutter, and the sound of footsteps is rising from the staircase below. The priesthood of Marduk was not a spiritual vocation. It was the most powerful economic institution in Babylon, and the most ruthlessly administered. The Esagila temple complex controlled vast agricultural estates, livestock herds, and thousands of dependent laborers. The shirku, temple slaves documented by name in Neo-Babylonian administrative tablets. Priestly offices were not appointments, they were assets. Cuneiform contracts from the 6th century BC, now held across the British Museum, the Yale Babylonian Collection, and the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin, record the sale of priestly prebends, the legally transferable right to perform a specific ritual on a specific day in exchange for a fixed share of temple income. A man could purchase the right to conduct the 5th day offering at the Eastern altar. His son could inherit it. He could sell it. He could subdivide it between nephews. The sacred calendar of Babylon was, in practice, a portfolio of recurring revenue streams, priced, traded, and litigated like property. The sacred marriage at the summit of Etemenanki was not separate from this economy. It was its theological cornerstone. The woman confined in that chamber was living proof, breathing present, sealed inside, that Marduk inhabited his temple. And if Marduk was present, then the offerings were justified. The grain tributes, the silver payments, the livestock levies, the labor conscription, an entire economic empire, one of the most sophisticated in the ancient world, rested on the credibility of a single claim, that a god shared a bed with a woman in that stone room every night. The oil lamp burning at the summit was not an act of devotion. It was a financial instrument. It told the city, the god is present, so keep paying. She was not a bride, she was a balance sheet entry, the most important line item in Babylon's books, unnamed and uncompensated. That is worth sitting with for a moment. She was not forgotten. She was never counted as a person to begin with. By 550 BC, Cyrus of Persia had already taken Media and Lydia. His army was moving east. The priests of Marduk had at most 11 years before everything they had built, every prebend, every estate, every grain levy, would be put to the test, including the woman in the chamber above them, back inside, 91 meters up. The lamp again. You tend it because the priests commanded you to. You tend it because without it, this room is a sealed stone tomb at altitude, and the darkness above Babylon at night is absolute. The golden couch is cold. The golden table holds food you cannot eat until the ritual blessing has been spoken, by a priest who is not here, who will not climb to speak it until morning. You can hear the city below, 200,000 people, market noise, the low churn of the Euphrates moving through its channels, children, dogs, the ordinary sound of a civilization that believes its God is with you right now, watching over them because you are here. None of them can hear you. Here is the midpoint truth, the thing the textbooks will not say plainly. She had no name. Not her name was lost to time. Not her name was forgotten after the conquest. Her name was never recorded. In the entire surviving archive of Neo-Babylonian cuneiform, tens of thousands of tablets cataloguing temple personnel, property transactions, ration distributions, astronomical observations, royal decrees, the woman who supposedly shared a chamber with the supreme deity of the Babylonian Empire does not appear, not once, not under any title, not under any function, not as a shadow in someone else's record. She is absent from the archive in the way that only a deliberate exclusion can produce. The Entu priestesses of earlier Mesopotamian periods were named. The Naditu, women of Sippar, celibate devotees who lived in a cloister attached to the temple of Shamash, held property, drafted contracts, and appear in hundreds of surviving legal documents by their personal names. Even the Shirku, the temple slaves at the bottom of the Esagila's labor hierarchy, are named in administrative ration lists. The chosen woman of Etemenanki was afforded less documentary dignity than an enslaved laborer receiving a barley allocation. Naming her would have made her a person, and a person can refuse. A person can be mourned, a person can be remembered as someone to whom something was done. The erasure was not administrative negligence, it was the final act of the ritual itself. She was not a woman in the eyes of the record. She was a function, and functions do not have names. They are simply performed, until they are no longer needed, and then they are performed again by someone else, and the record stays clean. If naming her would have made her real, then how many unnamed women were sealed in that chamber across 300 years, of Etemenanki's operation. The cuneiform record does not describe what happened when a chosen woman was removed from the summit chamber. This is not because those records were lost. It is because the priests built the administration so that no transition would leave a trace. That structural logic is recoverable. Herodotus specifies she must be a native woman, freeborn Babylonian. Neo-Babylonian temple administrative texts from the reigns of Nebuchadnezzar II and Nabonidus document the priesthood's control over personnel rotation across every other sacred office. Priests conducting the daily Satuku food offerings operated on fixed rotational schedules, their shifts recorded in prebend contracts. The Ziggurat itself was subject to continuous bureaucratic maintenance. Nebuchadnezzar II's own building inscription records the restoration of Etemenanki using conscripted labour drawn from across the empire. This was not an institution that improvised. Every function in the Esagila complex was scheduled, documented, rotated, and priced. Every function except one. The single detail that confirms the replacement cycle is the lamp. Herodotus does not describe the lamp at the summit ever going out. The flame burned continuously. It was part of the theological claim, the visible proof of divine presence available to anyone standing in the streets of Babylon and looking up. Which means, when one woman left that chamber, by death, by age, priestly decision that her service was complete. Another was brought up the 300-step staircase and sealed inside. Same golden couch, same golden table, same oil lamp still burning, different woman. The flame's continuity was the proof of the god's continuity. The woman's identity was irrelevant to both. Think about what that actually means. Somewhere in Babylon, at a moment that left no record, a woman was told she had been chosen, and the chamber she was brought to still held the warmth of the woman who had been there before her. She was not told that. There was no ceremony of transition. The lamp was already lit when she arrived, would still be lit when she was gone. Same flame, different prisoner, every time. 539 BC. The empire below the Ziggurat is fracturing, and the fracture begins not with a foreign army but with its own king. Nabonidus, the last independent ruler of Babylon, had made a series of decisions that the Marduk priesthood found unforgivable. He had elevated the moon god Sin, a deity whose cult center lay far to the northwest in Haran, above Marduk in the official religious hierarchy. He had neglected the Akitu, the New Year festival that was the single most important ritual in Babylonian civic religion, for consecutive years. The Akitu was not merely ceremonial, it was the annual renewal of the king's divine mandate. The moment when Marduk's priests publicly confirmed that the god had chosen this man to rule. Nabonidus skipped it again, then abandoned Babylon entirely for Timur, an oasis city deep in the Arabian desert, where he remained for roughly 10 years. The verse account of Nabonidus, a cuneiform propaganda text almost certainly composed by priests aligned with the incoming Persian regime, describes him in terms that stop just short of calling him mad. It accuses him of neglecting the temples, confiscating sacred vessels, and installing false cult images. Scholars debate how much of this is accurate and how much is post-conquest character assassination. What is not debated is the political consequence. By 540 BC, significant factions within the Marduk priesthood had already opened back-channel communications with Cyrus of Persia. The god's own clergy were arranging the handover of his city to a foreign king, and the woman in the god's chamber, sealed, unnamed, still tending the lamp, had no way to know that the institution keeping her alive was already negotiating its own survival at her expense. The Cyrus cylinder, the Persian king's own propaganda inscription in Akkadian cuneiform, would later claim that Marduk himself had called Cyrus by name, had selected the Persian as Babylon's rightful ruler and invited him in. This was priestly language. It meant the priests of Marduk had blessed the conquest before it happened. They had decided that a cooperative Persian king was more profitable than a heretical Babylonian one. The theology was flexible, the revenues were not. She is still up there. Political earthquake unfolding 91 meters below her is entirely invisible from the Shahuru. The lamp burns. The city sounds normal. The priests still climb the staircase with her meals. Nothing in her daily reality has announced that everything is ending. Somewhere on the road from Opis, a Persian general named Gobryas is studying a map of Babylon's canal system. He has found a way in. October, 539 BC. One night, Gobryas, the Persian commander documented in the Nabonidus Chronicle, British Museum tablet BM 35382, diverts the Euphrates River upstream, reduces the flow through the city's canal system, sends his soldiers through the drained riverbed under Babylon's walls into the city's interior. The chronicle records the result in 11 words of Akkadian. The army of Cyrus entered Babylon without battle. Nabonidus flees. The Marduk priesthood does not resist. The negotiation was already complete. The temples are not burned. The Esagila complex is preserved. Cyrus's policy of religious tolerance, broadcast on his cylinder, holds. But the ritual calendar stops. The daily Satuku offerings require priestly intercession. The priests are busy. The regime has changed. The sacramental economy that ran on schedule for generations misses a day, then another, and 91 meters above a city that has just changed rulers, without a single sword drawn in its defense. The oil lamp enters its third and final meaning. It is no longer the sacred signal visible across the floodplain. It is no longer her only companion in the darkness. It is a dead god's last breath, the final physical remnant of a theological claim that the priests who manufactured it have already abandoned. Marduk's own clergy called in a foreign king. The divine presence the lamp was lit to prove is gone. The economic empire the lamp was lit to sustain has just changed ownership. And the woman whose confinement was the lamp's entire justification is still in the chamber, alone, at altitude, the flame that no one below is watching anymore. No one is climbing the 300 steps with food. The priests who managed her supply chain are managing their own survival. The passage below her is sealed. It was always sealed from the outside. She cannot open it. She was never given that option. She is not a divine bride at this moment. She is not a function. She is a woman in a stone room at the top of a ruin, watching the only light she has been given flicker in a draft that was not there yesterday. The lamp does not go out dramatically. It does not signal anything. It dims, the way all flames dim when the oil runs low, slowly, then faster, then gone. The city below does not notice. The city below has a new king and new business, and 200,000 people who did not know her name when she was sealed inside and do not know it now. The summit of Etemenanki goes dark. After 3 centuries of continuous flame, it is all it takes. No ceremony, no record, just the dark. She is the last person in history to see Marduk's light, and she has no name in any surviving record of any civilization that came after. The oil in the lamp lasted hours. When it ran out, nobody came. Here is what the archaeological record confirms. And here is what it cannot recover. Etemenanki was not immediately destroyed when Babylon fell. Cyrus's policy of religious tolerance, documented on his cylinder, preserved the city's temple infrastructure in the short term. The Esagila complex survived the conquest largely intact, but the Ziggurat's ritual function did not survive. No Persian administrative text records the resumption of the summit chamber practice after 539 BC. No woman is selected. No lamp is relit for the purpose it had served. The practice ends with the regime that created it. The physical structure lasted longer, but not much. Xerxes I, Cyrus's grandson's successor, partially demolished Etemenanki following the Babylonian revolts of 484 BC, 45 years after the conquest. Strabo references the Ziggurat in a state of significant ruin. Arrian confirms it. When Alexander the Great arrived in 331 BC, 208 years after the lamp went out, he found rubble. He ordered 10,000 men to begin clearing it. He planned a full reconstruction. He died in Babylon in 323 BC, 8 years later, before a single stage had been rebuilt. The Ziggurat that was supposed to touch heaven was cleared by Greek soldiers, abandoned mid-project, and left to dissolve back into the Mesopotamian floodplain across the following centuries. 10,000 men assigned to restore it. Not one sent to find out who was inside it when it fell. No archaeological evidence of the lamp survives. No cuneiform text names any woman who served in the Shahuru. The Esagila tablet gives the dimensions of the summit chamber, but contains no personnel records. No titles, no rotation schedules, no indication that a human being was ever stationed there at all. Herodotus, writing circa 440 BC from second-hand priestly testimony, is the only textual source that confirms the practice existed. Everything else is structural logic and deliberate administrative silence. Now the arithmetic. Etemenanki's Neo-Babylonian operation runs conservatively from Nebuchadnezzar II's restoration, completed around 604 BC, to the Persian conquest in 539 BC, 65 years at minimum. If each chosen woman served for 1 year, 65 women were erased. If the rotation was seasonal, 4 selections per year, the number exceeds 260. If some served for several years and others were replaced within months, the true figure sits somewhere between those poles, irrecoverable. What is certain? The number is not 1. It was never 1. It was a cycle, running continuously, leaving no trace of any individual turn. We know the name of every king who walked beneath that lamp, every chief priest, every Persian general who took the city. So why do we know none of theirs? Babylon fell in October 539 BC. The priests negotiated their survival. The records, if they ever existed, scattered across the millennia into rubble and river silt. And the last woman in that chamber, the final unnamed occupant of the Shahuru atop Etemenanki, holds a distinction that belongs to no one else in the human record. She was the last person to see Marduk's lamp go out, not as metaphor, not as theology. Physically, the flame that had burned at the summit of the tallest structure in Mesopotamia, visible for miles across the floodplain, proof an empire pointed to when it wanted to demonstrate that its god was real and present, and watching, went dark on her watch, in that room, with no one coming, and she has no name in any language. The sanitized version of this history calls her God's wife. It appears in textbooks as a footnote to Babylonian religion, a sentence between paragraphs about cuneiform and cylinder seals, framed as a quaint ritual practice of a distant civilization. But the structure of what actually happened does not support the footnote. A woman was taken from her life, carried up 300 steps, sealed in a stone room at 91 meters, told a god would visit her each night, stripped of her name, so that her confinement left no legal record, fed through a slot in the passage, denied contact with every person she had ever known. And when the empire that imprisoned her collapsed and the priests who managed her fled for their lives, not one of them climbed those stairs to tell her it was over. The ruins of Etemenanki are now a waterlogged pit outside Hilla in modern Iraq. The foundation stones are still partially visible. The summit is gone, the lamp is gone, the chamber is gone. She is gone, and was gone long before the walls came down, erased from every record by the same hands that sealed the passage behind her. But the pit is real. You can stand at its edge. That part at least, they could not erase the system that consumed her, the one that took women, stripped them of identity, used them as instruments of institutional authority, and destroyed the evidence when it was done. That did not fall with Babylon. It changed address, it changed language. It kept very careful records about everything except the women inside it. There is another chamber, another empire, another set of records designed to never exist, and the women inside that system left something behind that the priests could not destroy. Not one priest climbed those stairs.